Hello, it's Dragon Tank 1400, and today we're going to talk about the future of Emerald in the RWBY story. Now, there's plenty of possibilities where they could take Emerald's character in relation to the plot and all that stuff. And I kind of just thought about this when I was thinking about Emerald's character and thinking about the last video I made about John and Cinder and stuff like that, and what happened to Cinder at the end of Volume 5. And I kind of just had to make this video because originally I was going to make the 6 protagonists of RWBY. However, I thought about this, and sometimes you just got to go with your gut and go with what you're really excited about. And Emerald's one of my favorite characters, and I just thought this was an interesting idea. So here we go, right on into it. So for my kind of story for Emerald to work out, we have to first look at Cinder and assume that Cinder isn't going to go back to Salem. Now, there's actually plenty of reasons why she wouldn't want to go back to Salem. One is that she kind of failed at Haven, really bad. She lost the relic. They lost everything. The White Fang lost. Salem had a huge loss at Haven, and it's primarily Cinder's fault. Now you could say it's also Raven's fault and all this other stuff as well, and John played a role with Weiss and stuff like that, and then there's Blake as well, and everyone else. However, the primary reason they lost, and as far as Salem knows, is because of Cinder. Now I think this would lead Cinder not to go back to Salem, assuming she's alive, which I'm going to assume she is, just because she's such a main antagonist of the entire series. And I see Cinder as though beaten, not really out. She's down but not out. And I don't see her going back to Salem because I think she's smart enough to know that if she goes back to Salem, she will kind of suffer a fate worse than Tyrion's punishment, which I definitely believe she at least somewhat saw or somewhat heard of. So that being said, I don't logically, it doesn't make any sense for Cinder to go back to Salem at this time. She will probably go back later on in the story. Just for the next volume, she's not going to. Now, since Cinder isn't going to go back to Salem, I don't believe anyone's going to know that she's still alive, including Emerald. And Emerald's kind of being forced back to Salem, even though she doesn't want to go back to Salem. She doesn't really want to serve Salem. Part of her character is that she wanted to serve Cinder because she felt that she owed Cinder everything. That's what she stated to RWBY. I think this is going to be very important going on with Emerald's character, and really where I think that they're going to take Emerald's character down the road. And I'm probably wrong, but this is the way I see it. Now, I see Salem wanting Emerald to become a maiden. The winter or summer maiden. We're going to Atlas, so probably winter, I'm just going to assume, or summer. Who really knows at this point? That being aside, I do really think that Emerald will become either the summer maiden or the winter maiden. It kind of makes more sense with her looks that she'll be the summer maiden. However, the next place is Atlas, so who really knows? Like I said. Now, this will actually lead to a fight between Cinder and Emerald, as Cinder's going to want to steal her maiden power. Nothing personal, she just wants to gain stuff. Now, Cinder is the type of character that just sees people as objects to be used for her own selfish gain. She doesn't really have any attachment to Emerald or Mercury or really anyone. She just cares about herself, and she just sees people as objects to be used. And that's the way she sees Emerald. And I believe that Cinder will definitely win this fight. I mean, Emerald might be a maiden at the time, but she is nowhere near Cinder's level of experience and really fighting capability. I mean, she does have a few tricks up her sleeve, but Cinder is very well aware of Emerald's tricks, so I don't think they'll work as well. That being said, Cinder's going to steal Emerald's power. Leave her for dead. She's not going to die. If you remember back in Volume 5, Cinder did the same thing to Vanar, and Vanar, I can never say her name right, but she didn't die right away. She died in after Cinder and Raven's fight. So she's not going to die right away, and that's what I believe John's going to come into this. at the end of Volume 5, towards the end, we saw that Jean was able to heal Weiss from a near fatal injury. I mean, Weiss was going to die, according to Ren. And then Jean just kind of amplified her aura, that she was able to, her aura was able to heal herself and completely restore aura. I mean, Jean has so much aura, it's unbelievable, really. That being aside, I think this will be something that Jean as a character, is his next growth, is to save like kind of one of his enemies. I mean, he kind of already did it with Cardin all the way back in Volume 1, so it does align with his character, but Emerald's like a different level of villain. She's one that like had a direct really course of action at the end of Volume 3 of everything that happened with Penny and with Priya. I mean, she didn't directly kill Priya, but she really had a huge part in killing Penny. So Jean might not be too happy about saving Emerald, but I believe it's in his character to actually do this for like many reasons, his growth, and he's selfless and stuff like that. Now, when this happens, I definitely think that Emerald will serve Jean the way she serves Cinder. She will feel like she owes Jean everything. Now that being said, I don't think this is necessarily like proof, evidence that Jean and Emerald are going to get together. No, that's not what I'm saying. Down this storyline they might, but to be honest, they haven't had any interaction at all, and I don't actually see that actually happening unless they over time build that up. It's not going to be like Jean saves Emerald and Emerald follows him or anything, but I do think it's in Emerald's character, if Jean saves her, that Emerald will really be loyal to Jean the way she is loyal to Cinder now. It just kind of lines up with her character. She feels like she owes someone everything, and that she's willing to do anything to for that person. I mean, she was even willing to kill for Cinder, and this really aligns with like Emerald's character in that she's not as like evil as the others. For example, at the end of Volume 3, when Cinder and Mercury were like smiling at the destruction of Beacon and Vale, Emerald was like, it's horrifying. Like she said, it's almost sad, and she was really like sincere about what she was saying. Unlike Cinder, who just takes pleasure in other people's pain and all this stuff, Emerald really doesn't. I mean, she's willing to kill and that kind of stuff for her loyalty towards Cinder, because she feels like she owes Cinder everything, because basically all the way back in Volume 3 we discovered that Emerald didn't know where her next meal was, and Cinder gave her like everything she needed to like survive. So it was like Emerald really felt that she owed Cinder everything. Now, like I said, if Jean saves her, she's probably going to feel the same way towards Jean, and she will follow Jean even against Cinder, and she'll actually feel like Cinder betrayed her by killing her, so she'll actually have more of a motive to fight Cinder. And of course Jean has a huge motive to fight Cinder, and that would like make for an interesting battle, Jean and Emerald versus Cinder. I think that would be an interesting dynamic, because Emerald has all this history with Cinder, and Jean has this like really huge motive to want to beat Cinder as well, and if this happens, Emerald would too. So it creates like a really good conflict, a really good reason to have this fight, if you will, in the series. Now, if this all does happen, I do see like a couple things happening as well. Like one, like Emerald just asking Jean like, why would you save me? Like, it doesn't make, because it's not going to really make any sense to her like why Jean would save her. She's going to be like, I'm your enemy, I'm one of the reasons one of your friends is dead and all this stuff. Like, it's not going to make any sense to her. And how that conversation goes, I'm not really sure. It's Jean's, it depends on like Jean's character and kind of what the creators want him to say. But that being aside, what I think they'll say is like Jean will say something down the lines of, I'm not just going to let anyone die, even one of my enemies. You were there, you were on death's row, and I'm not going to let anyone die. And I believe that Emerald's going to really respect Jean at this point. Like I said, I'm not saying that Jean and Emerald will end up together. Perhaps they will down this road, but it's not going to be right away. It's going to be something that they build up over time. But I do see, like I said, that Emerald will follow Jean and like treat Jean kind of the same way she treated Cinder earlier in the series, if all this happens. Another thing I see happening if all this happens and Emerald like follows Jean and like Team RWBY and everything like that, is that who will actually accept Emerald at first? And of course it's not going to be everyone. Some of the more likely candidates will be Blake, just because she has learned forgiveness over time and she's been shown to forgive others. RWBY will probably forgive Emerald, but Emerald is directly responsible for Penny, so that could be interesting. I don't think Yang will accept Emerald like that quickly. If this all happens, Jean might, just because he'll have like more of a communication with Emerald, like as he's healing her and Emerald asking him questions and kind of stuff like that. The others are kind of on the fence. Of course, Osmond will probably be against it, whereas Oscar would be for it. That might create like a rift between those two and more of a conflict between Osmond and Oscar. So and that's another topic. As I was saying earlier, I think this would definitely lead to Jean and Emerald versus Cinder in the end. Kind of that final fight between Jean and Cinder, and then Emerald would be helping Jean out. And of course she would have to, even if Jean gets a huge boost, which he'll definitely grow throughout the series, and he's definitely going to get some huge boosts. At this point, Cinder's going to have at least the power of 2 maidens if all this happens, which I think everyone is clear that she'll at least get 2 maiden powers. I doubt she'll get all 4 like she really wants, but I think it's clear that she'll at least get 2. So what happens after that? What happens to Cinder and what happens to Jean and Emerald? Well, I'm not even sure if any of this is going to happen, but if we're going to keep going down the rabbit hole, because the further along you get down this, the less likely stuff is going to happen, because we don't really know where the story is going to go and it has so many branching things. But I might as well have Jean and Emerald together. Why not? If this happens and they're going to have lots of interaction together, you know, towards the end at least, as we see Jean and Emerald slowly warming up to each other, and ends up being like a slow burn. And then Cinder, as they beat Cinder, like I said in a previous video, that my really last RWBY video, I think Jean will beat Cinder, but I think he won't choose to kill her. Now where Cinder goes after this, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about any of this, but this is just where I kind of see the story going and I envision for myself, and this is kind of a fun thought I had, kind of seeing where the pieces line up and seeing how Emerald could actually where they might possibly take Emerald. And I think this would definitely be interesting, because it would create this like interaction between 2 characters we've never seen interact before, Jean and Emerald, and they would actually have a common enemy and common main antagonist, really, and that is Cinder, which is definitely interesting. And I've already established that Cinder is Jean's main antagonist, so it would kind of work out pretty well, and kind of Jean's gonna need some help to defeat Cinder, even if he gets a lot stronger, but which he will by the end of the series. But the more I think about it, the more likely I think that Jean will need at least someone's help to defeat Cinder, because Cinder's gonna have the power probably of 2 maidens at the end of the series, or maybe even more, who knows. So those are my thoughts on like kind of where I think they're gonna take Emerald's character, based on like plot and based on all these different things. Now when I make like theory videos like this is technically not a theory, this is just like, oh, where I think they're gonna take the story, where I think they're gonna take Emerald, which is, I guess, a theory. I don't really use like what who the character is based on, because every main character in RWBY is based on someone. I mean, example is RWBY being based on a Little Red Riding Hood and everything. However, those analogies have flaws in them. Like Lionheart is based on the lion from Wizard of Oz, but instead of the lion actually gaining courage, the lion actually dies because he is a coward. So how the lion in Wizard of Oz ended up is completely different than how Lionheart ended up. So you can't really base things off of what these characters are based on. You can say they have similarities and stuff, but the analogy breaks down at some point, and they could definitely take characters in different directions, especially since people have caught on to this. They're more likely, the writers are more likely to take it in different directions than what the characters they're based on, which is why I don't rely on it at all. I more rely on predicting stuff about where the plot is going overall, little hints in there, here and there throughout the story, and kind of stuff like that. Anyway, so I would also like to hear what you guys have to say. Put in the comments of where you guys think Emerald's going to be. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. Bye.